Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. In case you missed the Motor City Mad Mouse show, you missed a doozy. I had former Dodgers Vice President and General Manager Fred Clare on the show, and we talked about everything that you can imagine. Let me tell you. So if you get a chance, by the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, please check it out. Mr. Clare, I'll tell you, there aren't too many subjects that we didn't talk about, so please check it out. Meanwhile, tonight, the Sports Exchange with Candy. Welcome back, Candy.
Thanks, Scott. Great to be here.
JB Ellis, welcome back.
Pleasure to be here, guys. How's everybody doing?
I'm doing all right. And last but not least, George Eichhorn.
Happy All-Star break, everyone.
There you go. And Joshua Dorr, he's on. I have a feeling we're going to have a lively show with Joshua Dorr tonight. Good stuff. Don't worry, Joshua, we won't disappoint you with these topics. Mark my word. You'll be able to loosen up enough to make it worth your while to be on tonight. Anyways, let's get right to the WNBA, which has agreed to a $2.2 billion rights fee. The deals with ESPN, Amazon, and NBC, which will quadruple the league's revenue. The current deal is $50 million. The reported new annual deal right now is going to be $200 million per season over 11 years. That equals $2.2 billion. And you can rest assured Caitlin Clark had a lot to do with it. All of a sudden, the networks are taking the WNBA seriously. And let's go to the woman that we have in here, Candy Ebling. This would have been a good one for Megan Price to be on, but Candy, we're more than happy to have you start off with this one.
I mean, I'm glad that people are starting to recognize women's sports. I'm glad that they're starting to pay more attention to it. I'm glad that their increase. I mean, now that they're seeing these revenue increases, I just hope that equates to what we're paying them as well, because the amount that like Caitlin Clark is earning, granted, she gets endorsements and all those other things, but the actual amount that she gets paid to play the game is very minute. They're actually, I don't know if any of you guys know this, but they're actually, then she's going to be represented. NASCAR team is to use Caitlin Clark themed car at Brickyard 400 this weekend as well. So she's going to be represented on NASCAR as well as, so, I mean, it's popular. I'm happy that it's not just one player. It's a couple of players that are, sparking the WNBA. For those that love basketball and love women's sports, that's great. And I'm excited and happy for them.
Well, when you think about the logistics of the deal, you're talking the current deal is $50 million, and now the next one's going to be $200 million. I mean, that's a lot. That's attributed to Caitlin Clark. It has a lot to do with it. So all these people that were jealous, get out of there. I mean, the one thing I'd like to see come out of this whole thing is they get paid enough money so they don't have to go overseas and have to supplement their income, a.k.a. Brittany Griner. I'll turn over to Joe. What are your thoughts about the WNBA finally earning a contract that it can feel pretty good about?
I think they made a big mistake. 11 years is a long time. You don't know what's going to happen. If the sport blows up, they're locked in. Right. 11 years. Think about how long that is. What were you doing 11 years ago, Scott? Do you remember?
I've been in this business 44. I can tell you that much.
Right. So where were you 11 years ago? Where was the South Florida Tribune?
Well, that was not in existence.
Right.
If you're trying to pin me down, you did. Okay, go ahead.
So, I mean, 11 years is so far. You don't know what could happen. They're leaving money on the table. The sport's growing. They seem desperate doing an 11-year deal. Not the right move. Glad that they finally got some recognition. They'll be on some great networks, but not a smart business decision, especially in the TV climate, to do an 11-year deal.
Okay, let's go to the chat room. Candy, Walter Mitchell's first one. Well, does that pave the way for future expansion? It definitely will. No doubt about that. They matched up with the NBA deal, from what I understand. I think it could be wrong. There you go. Walter agrees with Joe. All right, George, you got the final word on this one.
Yeah, the NBA deal is not totally finalized yet, but I agree, JB. I mean, that is an awful long time. And obviously, they're trying to seize the moment, like Candy alluded to, with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and all these great WNBA players we've seen over the last 12, 24, 36 months, 3 years, possibly going back. I mean, they've been working very hard, don't get me wrong, ever since the league was started, to get a contract of this magnitude, but it unfortunately has not happened so far. And you're right. I mean, they are gambling a bit because that's an awful long time for a contract to run, but it's also a sign of how far they've come, which you guys talked about earlier. A sign of how far women's basketball and women's sports in general has come.
But
All right.
Walter is correct. That NBA's Board of Governors approved the league's next media rights deal, and it's finalizing. It's an 11-year agreement as well. So the NBA and WNBA are both going for 11-year deals, which I agree, JB, is really long in today's day and age. And with the 11 years, let's face it, we weren't streaming 11 years ago. And how quickly things have changed, 11 years is a long time.
Okay, well, we're talking a long time, so guess what? We're going to transition to another long time subject, but not one that Joe Ellis would really particularly like. I'll talk about the New York Championship drought. With the Rangers eliminated, there have been 100 combined seasons played by the Rangers, the Islanders, the Knicks, the Nets, the Yankees, the Mets, the Jets, and the Giants. Joe, 100 years and you can't get a title in the Big Apple, Metropolitan Detroit. What is wrong up there?
Just bad general managers, bad coaching. Just, teams that are trying to win, but there's better teams that have gotten lucky or done the right thing. The Giants are, I don't know, can't even understand what they're doing. The Yankees haven't learned over the last, I guess, the Hal Steinbrenner era. Over in Queens at Citi Field, they are trying to do the George Steinbrenner method, which didn't really work.
Mm-hmm.
The Jets are the Jets. I mean, 1969 was a long time ago, and I don't know what they did to be such a cursed franchise. So we can't count them for anything. The Nets, they tried. They got their big three. Harden, who I don't know what kind of workout he was doing that he came in overweight. Kyrie, who was got some sort of mental thing going, and Durant, who can care less except for playing for a winner, but he doesn't know how to build a winner, and he just likes to hop around. He really doesn't need contracts. He should sign 10-day contracts throughout the season so he can go to different teams because he has no loyalty. He's a bum. He's always been a bum. Kevin Durant, JB _ the program on Twitter because you're a bum. But what else do I have to say about the men? One of the teams we missed, the Islanders, they're trying. They got the new arena, but it'll be a couple of years before they're good. I don't think I missed anybody, but New York sports is kind of horrible right now.
Well, okay, that's a good transition.
Did I mention Kevin Durant's a bum?
Yeah, well, you're welcome to admit
I heard that.
You're welcome to say it as many times as you want, but I knew that topic would get you right. In the eyes of Joshua Dorr, okay, and he would call it a ball buster. This is something that most New Yorkers have to deal with. They're ball busters because 100 years is a long time. But anyways, George, your thoughts about the situation that's going on in New York?
Unbelievable, really, Scott. I never looked at it that way with totaling all the years of all the teams that have been frustrated by the championship drought. It's really an unreal situation. It really is. And what Joe was talking about, I mean, you had bad management, you had bad coaching, you had some very skeptical fans that are getting a little bit more irate as every season marches on without a title. And it's really hard to believe because being the top city in America, the most populated city, and the one with the most money, usually, obviously with Wall Street being right in their backyard. I mean, it's kind of ironic that of all cities in America, New York is the one that has had this drought going 100 years. Unbelievable. I mean, you might want to throw Walter's comment up there too, Scott, but he talked about Detroit.
No, I'm not going to throw Detroit up there yet because
I
have something planned.
Okay.
George, if there comes a point where you're developing in the podcast era, okay, and if Joshua Dorr is listening or any of his other cronies, okay, let's stay on the subject, okay?
Okay.
And if I have to go out there and tattoo that to your forehead underneath the South Florida Tribune hat, I will do that.
Wow.
Tattoo, stay on point, Unicorn, and take that head off. I know there's enough head around there, or we'll do it in two lines. Stay on the subject, Unicorn.
Okay, got nothing else to say about
Yeah,
New
of
York
course,
City.
GE may bring good things to life, but a tattoo sprayer won't be able. I don't know. Are you allowed to be buried with tattoos with your religion?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think the Jewish people are, but that's not for another. That's another day.
Walter, you're fine. You're fine.
And that's okay, Walter. You're all right. It's different. I get to kick around Icorn. I've only been doing it for 44 years. What makes you think I'm going to stop now? You're okay. But now that you guys let the cat out of the bag, okay, that's an awful lot of teams for 100 years. So does that mean that Aaron Boone's seat gets a little hotter?
It should be.
The more desperate it is. But don't say anything more, Icorn. You've already brought your Detroit reference up. I'll do it. I'm suspending you for the next 10 seconds, okay? Until I go ahead and make segue. But that said, I'm going to have Candy give us a station break while you think about what I just told you. Go ahead, Candy.
Wait, can I comment on the New York?
Absolutely. You comment and then you give us a station break. But Icorn threw me off again. Sick him, man.
Okay, so the New York market, biggest TV market, biggest revenue, pretty much biggest pockets. I mean, let's face it, the New York Mets this season, $342 million is their payroll. 342. The next highest is 246. But does that mean money buys championships? Not always. Now, some will argue that, like in Miami, the Marlins, they bought some championships back in the day. But New York is having a streak of not the best coaching, not the best playing, not the best players playing together. And maybe some of it is attitude. And maybe some of it is pressure. Because let's face it, in New York, you're expected to win. You're expected to win championships. So there's an added layer of pressure, an added layer with the media to do well. And some people don't perform well under pressure. Now I'll do my station identification break.
Okay.
This broadcast is brought to you by the South Florida Tribune Publishing Company, which actually published a book last year, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by none other than Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morgan Roth. And the foreword was written by George Icorn. There is a picture of young Scott with young Muhammad Ali. There is also a plethora of stories that talk about Scott's involvement in the industry for over 40 plus years and how the industry has changed. Great read. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can listen to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, Spotify, Deezer, you name it, go get it. We have a website, www.southfloridatribune.com. On our website, on the front page, there is a link so you can go get, it's hot outside right now. You need a t-shirt. Go get a South Florida Tribune t-shirt. Or if you're traveling up to Canada and you need, cool off and you want a sweatshirt, go buy a sweatshirt, South Florida Tribune. It's on our website, the link. Click it. Go buy some merchandise. But you can go to our website and actually look at Scott's articles. George writes, JB writes, I take pictures. It's there. If you see a red subscribe button by George, that means you have not subscribed to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. I clearly do not understand why you haven't yet, but please do so. Then you'll be able to enjoy all of our shows and get notifications when our shows are on. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesdays and Thursdays, you never know what we're going to be talking about. We could be talking about a hot dog eating contest, cornhole, NBA, NHL, NBA, WNBA, you name it. And we might even do some non-sports topics. So check us out. Scott also does a show, the Motor City Madmouth Show, on nofilter.net. Typically, it's on Wednesday nights before us, but this week it'll be tomorrow night around 8 p.m. Eastern, approximately. Scott, back to you.
Thank you. And of course, on Twitter/X, you can find us over at Tribune South. All right, let's go back to Walter up in Detroit. We are on some losing streak. Yeah, we are, because misery does breed company. Let's talk about Chris Ilitch for a moment, who took when he took control of the Tigers and the Red Wings. The Tigers are the second worst in MLB. 457 and 665, the worst in NHL. Second worst, I should say. Or actually, second worst is the Tigers, and the worst in the NHL is the Red Wings at 206, 331. So when you think about the difference that you have right there, is things haven't been the same between Mike Ilitch and Chris Ilitch, and the Red Wings and the Tigers are up to some very difficult times. So with that said, Mr. Detroiter, you can talk now. You've had more than 10 seconds to think about what I told you. Let's talk about the Illiches and the rest of the problems. But before we do that, let's make sure we get the rest of the chat comments up there. Cursed, the Lions haven't won anything since 57. Yeah, hopefully that'll change, but they haven't. Last major pro championship here is in 2009 with the Red Wings. And don't forget that they were only go ahead and got to the playoffs 25 years in a row. I still think that does count for something anyway. The only difference in New York has infinite advantages at its disposal. I'm not going to lie. I enjoy the failure of New York City sports. Okay, well, it's sure a lot of people that you're entitled to your opinion. That's for sure. And let's see. Let's go to Meridai. All right. Top dollar spent on every team to succeed. There's no reason to not win. Well, except for coaching. George, I'm here if you need me. Yeah, of course he doesn't want to see his buddy get ripped. All right, go ahead, George. Now you can talk about your Detroit.
Well, obviously Detroit, at least professional football wise, has turned the corner. They won a championship. Yes, they haven't been to the Super Bowl, but that day is coming. As far as the Red Wings go, I mean, yeah, making the playoffs that many years in a row and all the Stanley Cups they won, but now they've been on hard times, as we know, 8 straight years without even tasting the playoffs. Pistons, just a complete disaster. Oh, gosh. But when you talk about Chris Ilitch, there is something that does stand out. He doesn't seem to have the passion of his father. His father was a Detroit Tiger player at one time. Chris is a very astute businessman. I think he built up his legacy within that family more on the business side. And I'm not faulting him, but I just mean the passion that his father had and his mother to a certain degree with the Red Wings to me is not present with young Chris Ilitch. So that's all I wanted to add. But yeah, Detroit's been waiting a long time too. I get it, but it still doesn't compare to the long wait of 100 years for the New York teams.
All right, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about Detroit, you think about the Bad Boys, the Pistons, you think about the Red Wings, which had a nice little dynasty for a while, the 84 Tigers, and they're finally starting to turn the corner and start to get some good young talent there in the baseball, the MLB, and the Tigers. The Red Wings, I don't know what's going on with them as much. I don't follow them as much, but I think in the next couple of years they're going to start to rebound. The Pistons, though, they just can't seem to figure it out. They've had top picks and been horrible for the last few years. I don't know what it's going to take for that team to come back and become relevant again, because it's a shame. It's a hardworking community. It's a hardworking city, and they're just there. They're not giving it the effort that they should, I think.
Okay. Candy?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys what surprised me is I saw a stat that says for the Tigers, last year your revenue was $306 million for the Tigers. Your payroll this year is $118 million, which is only 38.6% of the revenue from last year. According to MLB, out of the 30 teams, that puts you 27th place percentage-wise of the revenue you guys made last year, what you're spending on payroll this year. What I'm gonna say is I'm gonna blame a lot of it on your GMs, because honestly, I don't think we give enough credit to the GMs that can put together really good teams, and part of it is the owner that pays for that GM. The success that Green Bay has had, a lot of it is attributed to Ron Wolf. If you look at it, the really good GMs really know how to pick players. And you've got to, some of the teams that don't have the payroll and the expense that a lot of other teams do, they've got to rely on hitting on all your draft picks. And so I think a lot of it is that. A lot of it is also your coaching staff, getting your players to play together cohesively as a team, because these are all team sports, not individual sports. And I think that matters too and makes a big difference.
Well said. Well, Troy Weaver was awful. Monty Williams, unfortunately, lasted only 1 year. I think he could have gotten it done in year 2 or 3 with better players, but the reality of the situation is you don't finish 14-68 worse than you did when you only won 16 games. And Tom Gores right now is getting to the point where that honeymoon period is over. He knows he needs to put together a winner. So when you have that combination going against you, it doesn't work well. Al Avila had a 19 million year rebuilding program, traded every good player on the planet, and that's why they were behind. The Red Wings, I cut them a little bit more slack. Ken Holland did a good job with them. Steve Yzerman is just trying to clean up the mess. And the Lions under Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, there's no question that they're making progress. So albeit they're having a little difficult time right now, I see the Red Wings getting in the playoffs next year. The Lions can only hope that there's really not a major letdown coming into next year, because you always hope that they don't read the clippings. But I don't think there will be. I think they're in much, much better shape now than they were. The Red Wings were so close to getting in the playoffs. That's the whole thing.
Right,
If it wasn't for an overtime, too many overtime wins and not a regulation win, they would have been in the playoffs, and that drought would have been gone. So I do feel good about where they're headed, but again, like you guys have all reiterated, when you don't have front offices and ownership on the same page and the owners aren't making the right moves, that's a recipe for disaster. That's for sure. Well, you know what? Now that we've gone out there and talked about the droughts, let's talk about something that's really good in women's sports. And no, I'm not talking about the WNBA. I'm talking about something a little bit better than that. Kudos to Marnie, Marney Gellner, who became the first woman to call play-by-play in Minnesota Twins team history, and she did it against the White Sox. Well, let's turn to the woman that we have here, Candy Epling, and let's give me your thoughts about Marnie Gellner.
I don't know a lot about Marnie, but I mean, you're hearing more and more how women are starting to do play-by-play and getting into the game. Kudos, because again, why are we talking about this? Like, why is it a thing? It should be a norm. The best person for the job should get it, whether it's a woman or a female. Both know the game. The game is the same. Growing up, if you play baseball, you would know it. As long as you know the history and can tell good stories, good for you. Like if she's great, I've never listened to her. I'll be honest. My favorite is Bob Uecker, without a doubt. But I'm partial and biased to, my team. But do I ever think women will play in the MLB? I actually think so, Adam, because there's women now starting to play in college football. And that's a more contact sport. So I would think MLB could be easier and more accepting of women playing in MLB.
There you go. Okay, go ahead,
And
George.
Joshua Door, dog check.
There you go. Got to give him a
Dog check. 101.
All right.
Hey, listen, we talked about it on 108 Stitches. I'm happy for her. I don't know much about her either, but it's one of those areas that it's just taken a long, long time to kind of crack that barrier, if you will. The other one is Major League Baseball, and that's another thing is the umpiring. We've had female officials, but for some reason they've had them in spring training, but they never promoted a female to the staff. I think they should do that also. But there's a lot of qualified lady announcers and lady broadcasters and sportscasters. They do a great job with anchoring. They do a fantastic job as sideline reporters. They've been going back to Phyllis George. They've been part of the panel, if you will, on the pro football pregame shows and stuff. So I'm happy for her in Minnesota. The Twins seem to have made a nice move to do that. And I'm only hoping that it becomes more common instead of us having to talk about being a one-off, and that she did something that nobody else did, at least in Minneapolis. So yeah, I'm happy for her, Scott, too.
All right, Joe. I like this comment by Adam Bloomstein. I would like to see a female head coach, a female umpire next 2 years. You know what, Adam? There's a thought I actually had. I thought Becky Hammond would break the barrier and become the first head coach in the NBA, but it didn't work out. She took the Las Vegas Aces. But you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if that happens in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, Adam. Great point, though. All right, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of over this topic. It's 2024. The best person for the job is the one that should get it. She's obviously the best person. The Twins thought she was best and most qualified for the job.
Right.
Women could, talk about sports just as good as men. Candy's one of the best that I've worked with. I have no problem saying that. Candy's a woman, so it's self-explanatory. It's great that we recognize it, but at the same time, it's not something we should even have to recognize. If you're the best for the position, that's what it should be. I'm glad for the woman, Marnie. I'm sure she should be proud that she got there. It's groundbreaking, but at the same time, we're at a point where it shouldn't be groundbreaking. So
correct. Thanks.
Yeah, I
David.
agree. And I'll tell you this too, Marnie Gellner in Minnesota. She's something. I'll tell you what. She's well liked and well known there, so her credibility is unbelievable. Excuse me. So with that said, okay, we're going to stay. This topic is designed for Candy Eveling. Now, I'll tell you what, I noticed this here out there. I couldn't believe how many coaches that the Milwaukee Bucks employ when it comes to assistant coaches. If Doc Rivers isn't under pressure now, I don't know what the heck pressure is. So bear with me for a second, okay? Here's the coaching staff of the Milwaukee Bucks under Doc Rivers. Darvin Ham, never heard of him? Yeah, once upon a time he was there with the Lakers. Greg Buckner, Dave Jorger, previous head coach. Then you have Rex Kalmamian, Joe Prunty, Vin Baker. Now, I'll tell you what, Vin Baker was a heck of a player. I used to like watching him. Pete Dominguez. So that'll be a crowded bench. So those are all your assistant coaches. Now, if you want some other assistant coaches, for assistant coaches, you got Jack Karen, the head of player development, Jason Love, player development, and then you have Spencer Rivers, player development. Oh my goodness, how many coaches can you have, Joe? That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, more power to them if they want to have that many people in the coaching staff. I don't think it's necessary. But if, they feel that they're going to get the most having all those people, on the bench or in the organization helping, as long as they can effectively use all of them to make the team better. But it all starts with, Doc Glenn Rivers, who has proven he's not the best coach in the NBA, that he's not good in the playoffs when it counts. And, he's going to be holding that team back. So, maybe get rid of him and elevate one of the 35 million assistant coaches, and they'll have a better shot.
Hey, Joe, I was just amazed that they had that many coaches. I'm thinking,
that is a lot. That's insane.
7 regular assistants, and then or 8. I don't know who's counting at that point. You got 7 plus 3 equals 10. Yeah, that's a general math question, one that I can handle that doesn't require a calculator, but still 10. That's a lot. I mean, and you know what? You go 5. Remember, starting lineup was 5, and then you have 5 deep. Am I missing something? Never mind. Forget about it. All right, George Eichhorn.
Well, I tell you what, that is a lot of coaches, and it just exploded, and not only in the NBA, but also Major League Baseball. I noticed so many coaches on these rosters, on these clubs. But yeah, I mean, you can have as many coaches as you want, but if you still can't win or you still can't get to the promised land, then something's wrong. I mean, we saw them. They swept Phoenix in the first round. The Bucks did, and then they struggled mightily. They almost lost the Denver series. They came back with 2 wins at the tail end of that series, and then they made it to the conference finals. And we all remember what happened against Dallas: 1 win, 4 losses. So I agree with you. I was cutting him a little bit more slack probably than I should have when we talked about Rivers after he was hired by Milwaukee, because I remember we talked about him at great length on one of the shows. But no, I'm with you guys now on that. I mean, he's not seemed to be the right person at all to get a team far, far deep into the playoffs and into the championship round, if you will, the finals. So yeah, a lot of coaches, and obviously you got to have more than just coaches. You got to have talent and leadership on that floor. And that's where I think Milwaukee has to fine tune and get a little bit better in those departments.
Okay, let's go to the chat room here. Walter Mitchell Candy. This is one for JB. Okay, Walter Mitchell. The problem is some of us still have Neanderthal feelings. Remember that lady that just the assistant coach of the Kraken people hated? It not even looking at her resume. I mean, okay, you have an answer to that?
It's a shame it's like that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not just with females in sports. It's with race. It's with religion. It's 2024. We're all people. I guarantee you, if any one of us gets cut, it's red. We all breathe oxygen. We're all very much more similar than we are different. And we have to start just getting over all of that, and then we'll be okay.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Candy, since it's your team, the Milwaukee Bucks, what's your answer to all these coaches?
It doesn't matter how many coaches you have. The coaches don't play the game. It depends on what team you field on that court, the talent you have, the talent that plays together. And I'll be honest with you, how injury prone are those players? Because that's really what's been biting the Bucks lately. As far as coaches go, the annual salaries for NBA coaches, they get as high as $387 and as low as $15,000. On a night, on the bench can only be head coach and a maximum of 3 assistants, whether they're coaches or trainers or anything like that. So having all those coaches, fine, but it's really about the talent that you put on the field and how well. And I've said this for a long time that I've thought a lot of the Milwaukee teams have gotten a lot of injuries. And so I think the training staff has to do a better job of keeping them out on the field. I just read that Chris Middleton had surgery on both of his ankles during the offseason. Now he's supposed to be ready for the start of the next season, but he's only played in an average of 86 games this last year, and it used to be higher than that. They traded away the Bucks again. I will say this till I'm blue in the face. They traded away Drew Holiday, and he was the defensive guru on that team, on that championship team, that really helped gel them together and play defense. And the Bucks really lacked that defense last year. And there's an old saying that says defense wins championships.
Well, all I can tell you is this. Doc Rivers doesn't survive. You have a couple potential replacements on the bench in Darvin Ham, and you have one of Dave Jorger. Now, a little defensive note that I just found out today is that Patrick Beverley has decided instead of playing for Houston and Detroit for the league minimum or wherever they can get him, he's going to play in Israel. So enjoy the matzah, enjoy all the chopped liver, and enjoy the amenities out in Israel. It's okay, Patrick Beverley. You might even be able to gain a lot more subscribers for your podcast. That's what you can do out there. Although they're going to have to figure out how to do it in Israel. And I wouldn't even begin to advise you because I struggle to speak the languages that I do. I've never even passed a foreign language, but still. But as far as the Bucks are concerned, the biggest thing that they have to have come postseason, Giannis Antetokounmpo must finally stay healthy in the postseason, period. 1 year he's missing in this amount of games. This year he's missing. Come on, Giannis. Stay on the court, okay? We can't sit here looking to put people around you when you're not playing during the playoffs. They need you during the regular season. The numbers have always been good. You got your championships. So you don't have to worry about anybody putting you in the classifications of all the players that don't have one. But they need you in the postseason. They do. And until Giannis Antetokounmpo can stay healthy in the postseason, fine. Now, Doc Rivers, you don't have any more excuses to not win. You got enough help. I mean, my goodness, if you may not have that many people on the bench during the game, you have enough people in the gym to make sure everybody can shoot free throws or whatever you got these guys brought in for. So, as if Doc Rivers' seat wasn't hot, I'd say it's boiling hot right now. And because the Milwaukee Bucks are showing a lot of faith that you can hire all the assistants you want, you better win. And that's all there is to it. Now, I just started a new segment, which I'm really having a lot of fun with. It's called our non-sports related subject. Nobody sees this here, so nobody knows, okay? But I have one that Candy Ebling is definitely going to be familiar with, but I'm going to bring her on last, okay? And I'm going to start off with Joe Ellis, okay? A Florida man faces a felony robbery charge after attempts to withdraw 1 cent. I said 1 cent, folks, okay, from a bank in Sumter County. His name is Michael Fleming. What do you think of that, Joe? 1 cent. You got a penny in your pocket? Really?
So he tried to withdraw a penny, and he's got felony what charges?
Yeah, got a felony charge. They're trying to charge him for a felony charge just for with. I don't know if there's some stupid publicity stunt or whether this is real, but it was real enough to get it on the sports exchange tonight. What do you think? A felony for a penny? Holy
What
moly.
is wrong with Florida? Well, seriously, what is wrong with the state of Florida? That's all I can say.
I don't have that much of time to tell you.
They've already spent more than what the whole penny was worth once they arrested him.
Yeah.
And now we haven't even got into the court cost, the lawyer cost. And if they incarcerate the man, that's tax money for the 1 cent. I'm done.
Yeah, but you know what? You just got started because you probably gave the answer that 99.9% of this civilized world would come up with. But you know what we always try to do, Joe, as we always talk about in the book? We got to come up with something different, and it's our job to report the news whether we like it or we don't, right, Joe?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that journalism 101?
Of course.
Okay. All right, George, you know what? What are your thoughts about the penny felony?
The penny felony stinks to high heaven. I'm sorry. There's no place for that kind of, I mean, I could see if somebody's trying to have some fun and getting drawing the ire of the bank employees or something like that. Now, I don't know if he had something planned like that as to try to get his name in the news. Although that's a better way to get your name in the news, I guess, than obviously some other violent criminals with the way what things they do. But that's for another day. But no, I don't understand it. I just, it's so funny, but it's ridiculous. And yet it just is the craziest thing, Scott and guys and Candy. This sounds so stupid. Like you said, GB, wasting all the time and energy on it now. You're far, far in the negative category. What it's costing the powers that be. Crazy.
Well, if anybody was on Inside the Pigskin last night, I never thought I'd see the day where I'd be talking about Flip Wilson and Nipsey Russell. But when Jeremy Baldrick is out there telling me that he can't come on our show on Thursday because he's got a date, and then everybody, all of the co-hosts here are having a lot of fun. We hope it works out well for you, Jeremy Baldrick, and all. We're having a blast with this guy. We love Jeremy. Don't get me wrong. If you want to take the night off for a date, we hope it works out. And you know what? The one thing I've always learned, you got to be crazy. You got to be different. And we need to maintain a sense of humor. And that 1 cent penny, to me, felony is interesting. But we'll go to somebody that's a bit more familiar with the banking industry, Candy.
So he walks in, fills out a withdrawal slip for a penny, walks up to the teller. Teller says he can't withdraw the penny. He says, "So you want me to say the other word?" Fleming told the bank teller, according to the arrest report. No other details are out there except that deputies said the bank teller was in fear of possible violence. So he might have acted very aggressively that you guys don't know. And so they actually said when the deputies were there, that they felt there was probable cause to feel that he was violating Florida's robbery laws. And so that's why he actually was arrested. He was a 41-year-old man. He remains on $5,000 bond as of a couple days ago. There are so many crazy people in this world. And yes, you guys don't have, and I shouldn't say don't have a clue, but the reality is, who in their right mind is going to walk into a bank and give a withdrawal slip for a penny? Like, you can't do anything with a penny. You're doing that to be rude, joking, if you're trying to joke, but it really isn't funny. And as somebody that works inside a bank, I can see where now I wouldn't necessarily have taken it to this level, but obviously maybe he was aggressive and maybe he was talking aggressively and his body language. There are so many crazy people in this world that you have to be careful because the slightest wrong thing that you say, you don't know if he didn't have a gun in his with him. You don't know what he might go do. Like if you say the wrong thing, he might walk out, go get a gun and come back. Like there are so many different things that set people off and vice versa. So do I think walking into a bank for a penny is something that should be a felony? No. But what else transposed? That could very well, she could, whoever the bank teller was, could have been trying to protect her and others because you don't know who else was around as well. Because if he was getting violent and getting, abusive, who knows what he could have done.
Well, we don't have the footage on it, but you know what? Anytime I see interesting stuff like there, that's why we have a comment section. That's why we have emails. And that's why when we come up with stuff like this, it's off the wall. And, I wish we had more opportunities to do more newsworthy stuff. The problem I don't like about doing a lot of newsworthy stuff is the reason why I tune local news off is I'm sick and tired of seeing who was killed here and all that business. So if I could go out there and find anything out of journalism that's a little bit different and try to bring it to the forefront, that's the reason why I incorporate these different topics. But I don't watch local news. I haven't in a long time. And you know what? Again, we have our sources to get information. And as Marshall McLuhan would say, and I mentioned it in the book, the medium is a message. And every now and then, I'm using the medium as a message to talk about an off-the-wall news story so we can get comments from other people that might have different opinions. But at least on this one, we knew Candy had a little bit more information or insight on it than we did. So with that said, we do have time for parting shots. Candy, do you have any parting shots?
Do I have, give me a minute, circle back
All
to
right,
me.
George, do you have a parting shot?
Yeah, hats off to Joe Davis and John Smoltz and the team at Fox Sports. The very well put together all-star broadcast last night. Very, very exciting. And also, I got hats off to the Texas Rangers. My goodness, I don't think I've ever was going to see a day outside of protecting the outfield from having a riot to if you win a championship with horseback. But those horses coming on the field for the American League flag, the National League flag, that was so cool. And the different cowboys doing their rope tricks. So hats off, Texas. You did a great job down there. Great all-star game.
So, JB, you have any parting shots?
So in a few weeks, we're going to be going and having the 2024 Olympics. The mayor of Paris took a swim in the river, which they claim is cleaned up. They've been working on cleaning it for many years at this point, but recent tests show it's actually not safe to swim in the river. But the mayor has decided that he was going to go ahead and swim in the river to show everybody that it was, safe. The Olympic Committee needs to step in, make sure that the river is safe to swim in, not put athletes' health at risk for an opportunity that, these athletes will do whatever it takes to compete. So it's your job as the Olympic Committee to protect the athletes that would do anything to compete in your events and find a safe location. And, to me, that's just something that needs to be done as soon as possible, have an alternative to it, because you can't have athletes travel, and they're not going to sit out if they, if it's whitewashed and said, oh, it's safe, but it's really not safe. They're not going to sit out. They're not going to have their own test. They're not going to look at the water and say, I don't like the way it looks, I'm going to sit out of this. They're going to compete because they all want to win. And, you got to protect them in this situation. So this needs to be done relatively soon and find an alternative location.
Okay. Well done. Candy, you have a parting shot?
My parting shot, and this is not political, but there is no room for violence at any political event. I don't care who was there, what you believe in. The attempt at the assassination is uncalled for, and I'm sorry. I know we don't talk politics, but there is no room for violence at any of these. Everyone has a right to speak, freedom of speech. You have a right to your opinion. You have a right to be at an event supporting who you want to support. And it is just so sad that innocent lives were lost because someone decided to take a shot.
All said. The only two comments I want to have tonight are number one, I want to thank Fred Clare for being my guest on the Motor City Man Mouse show. Folks, this is as old time of a baseball conversation as you can get with a guy who won a World Series with the Dodgers and has been a part of baseball for ages and ages. And we talked about Al Campanis in that Nightline interview, as well as some important issues about, minorities in the sport and all that. So if you get a chance on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, please watch that interview. It's a good one. The only other comment I have, Mr. Ellis, is I hope you have a good time out in Alaska. I've been there, didn't take the cruise, okay, but Alaska's a great place. One of these days I'll take Candy on the Alaskan cruise. I hope you and Debbie have a wonderful time out in Alaska. I know you're going to have a wonderful time. It's one of the greatest states I've been in. So go out there, and we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks from now.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So meanwhile, with that said, that concludes this edition of the Sports Exchange. But, Katie, you want to take over?
No, I was just going to say we won't be on in 2 weeks. We'll be on next week, but the week after we will be traveling back ourselves.
Right, okay. Well, so we will be on next week, okay, but 2 weeks we will be off. All right, make sure we get our travel schedule straight. With that said, Joe Ellis, let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
JB_ the program on X, sidelinesportsnet.com, sidelinesportsnet.com, the best website out there that Candy has put together for us. It looks phenomenal. You got articles, you got pictures, you got everything that's important to you all in one spot. You got articles from Scott, George, myself, and plenty of other people, some pictures from Candy, and some phenomenal stuff on there.
Okay, George, you're next.
Yeah, you can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com. You can read me on the Motor City Tribune, which is at the South Florida Tribune website. And also I've got a book. Yeah, man, thank you, Candy. Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, featuring our own Scott Morganroth, along with our dear friend Ernie Harwell, George Kell, Al Kaline, so many other Tiger broadcasters in baseball, all sports. So there's a link to that at the near the end of my column on Motor City Tribune. And you can reach me on X at Sanji Sports 99, as well as see me on 108 Stitches and the Sports Exchange. Two wonderful programs here. JB, you and your beloved have a great time in Alaska.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Candy, take us home. And hello, Ralph Williams.
Hi, Ralph.
Hello, Health. So, South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book last November, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning in the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by Scott Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, and the foreword was written by none other than George Eichhorn. Go get the book. George's book and Scott's book, both available on Amazon. Get your copy today. It's Amazon Prime Day. Come on, what are you waiting for? It talks about Scott's 40 plus years in the business and how media has changed over those 40 plus years. Go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. Read all the articles we have. We get transcripts from the Dolphins, the Jaguars, the Lions. We get a lot of local South Florida colleges. We get Hurricanes, Gators, FAU Owls, USF Bulls, all kinds of sports related stuff. Go there, especially now we have some articles I can tell you about some of the athletes that are competing over in the Olympics that were based out of Florida and that went to school at some of the schools down here. So go get to the website, check it out. Go buy some merchandise on our merchandise store. You know, you need a hoodie, you need a hat, you need come on. You need some. If you'd like to listen to our podcast, you can get it wherever you get your podcast. iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, Spotify, Deezer, CastBox. If you haven't subscribed to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, please do so and get notifications when our fabulous programming comes on. Monday nights, it's 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Tuesday nights, it's Inside the Pigskin. Wednesday nights, it's Sports Exchange. Thursday nights, it's typically Fire Up. Tomorrow night, we will not be doing Fire Up. Scott will be doing his Motor City Mad Mouth show on nofilter.net tomorrow night. Let's see. And you have a guest, but I'll let you talk about that.
Well, that'll be a TBD. Okay.
TBD.
Oh, but I should also point out on Mondays now we have a show that we got going again called Fire Up Florida, which will be a hockey show that we're looking to turn. We'll talk about the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. I co-host Rod Peterson, and I'll be running that. And we'll be bringing in alternate voices to contribute when they want to as well. It's going to be a great show. Primarily the Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning, but I'm going to also make sure we do talk a lot about big hockey news as well. Why not? I mean, I like to have hockey every once in a while on the Sports Exchange, but the majority of the hockey content will be spilled over there like we do with baseball and football as well. And just so you know, on Twitter at Tribune South is how you can follow us there. So, and
Tuesday nights, if you like to listen to more women talking about sports, I'm on Chicks and Salsa Tuesday nights at 7:30. Come on over and listen to us. You never know what sport we're going to be talking about or what we're featuring. Last week, Megan and I talked a lot of WNBA. We talked a little bit about the All-Star game. The WNBA has their All-Star game this weekend. They have Friday is their shoot around. I'm trying to think. Saturday is the actual game, I believe. But yes, go check out Chicks and Salsa as well.
All right. Well, that does it for this edition of the Sports Exchange. On behalf of Candy Ebeling, George Eichhorn, JB Ellis, my name is Scott Morgenroth. Thank you for joining us. We will be back on the Sports Exchange next week, and I'll have another guest on. I'll inform people of that later on once it is officially confirmed. And then JB Ellis will have his regular seat when he gets back from Alaska. So once again, JB, you and Deb have a great time.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
And thank you everybody much for joining us. We appreciate all the activity in the chat room. Walter Mitchell, you were our number one star of the night. Thank you very much, Walter, for contributing. Good night, everybody. See you next week.
Good night.